All right, let's get right into it. What if I told you there's an actual, complete system for communication? A kind of blueprint that can take those really difficult conversations, the arguments, the tough negotiations, and turn them into successful collaborations. Well, today, we are unlocking that exact system.
But first, let's start with a question I think we have all asked ourselves at some point. Why is it that even with the best intentions, we so often misunderstand each other? You say one thing, they hear something totally different, and all of a sudden you're just worlds apart. It's got to be one of the most common frustrations in life, right?
And here's the thing, the real root of the problem, it's not actually about the facts or who's right or who's wrong. It's about this really simple but devastating chain reaction. A misunderstanding happens, and that immediately leads to a disconnection. And once that connection is broken, the conversation is pretty much already lost.
So here's how we're going to break this all down. First, we're going to dig deep into the root of the problem. Then we'll cover the foundational rules you just have to know. After that, we get to the good stuff, the 5-step formula. We'll even cover how to handle a big ego, and we'll wrap up with how you can actually practice this stuff to become a master.
Okay, let's kick things off with section 1, the root of every problem. Because, before we learn any fancy techniques, we've got to understand why we fail to connect in the first place. This idea is the foundation for everything else we're going to talk about. So, here it is, the single most crucial idea in this entire system. It's shifting your goal from I want you to understand me to I want to understand you. Seriously, that one little shift changes everything. It's not a tactic, it's a complete change in your purpose, and it is the secret to unlocking pretty much any conversation.
Okay, so let's move on to section 2 and see how we build on that. These are what we can call the foundational rules. These are the unspoken laws that really determine whether a connection is going to work or just fall apart.
First up, credibility. And look, we're not talking about your job title or how fancy you sound. Credibility is your single greatest personal asset. It's what makes your words actually mean something. And it's not just given to you, it is earned. You build it brick by brick every single time you keep a promise, no matter how big or small.
And that's exactly why credibility is so important, because it builds trust. And trust, well, trust is everything. Just think of it like currency. It's the money that makes every transaction in a relationship possible. Without it, the best communication formula in the world is totally, completely worthless. Now, for what might be the most counterintuitive rule of them all. You see, effective communication, it's not 50-50, not even close. It's more like 80-20. A full 80% of your energy should be focused on deeply, truly listening and understanding. Only 20% should be spent on talking. When you radically shift that balance, you give the other person the one thing they crave most, to feel like they've been truly heard. And that brings us to section 3, which is really the heart of this entire system, the 5-step communication formula. I want you to think of this as your practical, step-by-step blueprint for navigating any important conversation and actually coming out successful. So here they are, the 5 steps. Step 1, you grasp the purpose. What do you actually want to get out of this conversation? Step 2, you connect emotionally. You've got to build that bridge of empathy. Then step 3 is you agree on a common goal. You find that shared anchor. Step 4, you co-create solutions together. And finally, step 5, you empower the decision, giving them a sense of ownership. Now listen up, because this is a huge warning. The single biggest mistake that people make is they get impatient. They hear a problem and they immediately try to jump from step 1 all the way to step 4 to solve it. But if you skip step 2, if you don't build that emotional bridge first, I'm telling you, your solutions, no matter how brilliant they are, will almost always get shot down. All right, let's move to section 4 and tackle what I like to call a boss level challenge. What do you do when you're up against someone with a really big ego? This is where the system is truly put to the test, and honestly, where it proves just how powerful it can be in those high-stakes moments.
For this, we use a special little redirection formula. You'll notice it looks kind of familiar, right? First, you acknowledge them to cool things down. You might say something like, I can totally see why you'd feel that way. Second, you bring them back to the anchor, that common goal we talked about. Third, you invite them to co-create the solution with you. And finally, you empower their decision. The whole strategy is to help them feel like they've won, so that in the end, you both can win.
So here we are at our final section, and you could argue it's the most important one. Practice to become a master. Because, knowing the formula is one thing, but turning that knowledge into a skill that's just second nature, that's where the real magic happens.
This right here is the core mindset shift you need for mastery. Most of us, and be honest, spend conversations listening to rebut. We're just waiting for a pause so we can jump in, state our own point, and poke holes in what they just said. But mastery? That's when you listen only to understand. Your one and only goal is to see the world from their perspective. It is a profound change in how you show up to a conversation.
All right, it's mission time if you choose to accept it. This isn't just theory. Think of it as a workout for your communication muscles. So, in 3 important conversations this week, I want you to try this. Before you even start, define your purpose. That's step 1. Then, for the first 2 minutes, just listen. I mean it. Don't interrupt. Don't plan what you're going to say next. Just absorb. Then, find a moment to use a phrase like, I understand, to show some empathy. And if things start to get heated, don't take the bait. Just pause, breathe, and say, let's revisit our common goal. This is how you build the muscle, one conversation at a time. And that brings us to our final thought here. This whole system we've walked through, it's a science. It's based on psychology, on proven techniques. It really does provide the map. But a map is useless without a driver. So the real question, the one I'll leave you with, is this. Can you bring the art, that genuine, sincere desire to connect, to make it all truly work? Because that, right there, is what separates a good communicator from a truly great one.